Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a story that has just exploded in the last few days, and it is all about Russia coming out strongly denying any ambitions to take over the entire country of Ukraine. And they are directly refuting a recent US intelligence report that suggests otherwise. So let's unpack this step by step because it touches on so much: the ongoing war, the peace talks, the differing views in Washington, and what it all might mean going forward. First off, the report in question came from sources familiar with US intelligence, and it was highlighted in major outlets like Reuters just a few days ago. Essentially, these sources said that American assessments have not changed much since the full-scale invasion began back in 2022, and that President Putin still has not given up on his ultimate goals, which include capturing all of Ukraine and even eyeing parts of Europe that were once under Soviet influence. Now, this is heavy stuff because it directly contradicts what Putin and the Kremlin have been saying publicly for years. Putin has repeatedly insisted that Russia has no plans to occupy the whole of Ukraine, let alone threaten Europe, and he frames the operation as limited to protecting Russian speakers in the east and countering NATO expansion. But here comes this intelligence saying nope, the ambitions are still there, and they haven't shifted even as negotiations are happening. Now, the Kremlin response was swift and firm. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov came out and said, look, if this is what US intelligence really believes, then they are flat out wrong. This is absolutely not true. He questioned the reliability of the anonymous sources and made it clear Moscow sees these claims as inaccurate and perhaps even provocative at a time when there are delicate talks underway. And then adding another layer to this, the US Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, weighed in directly. She posted on social media calling out what she described as warmongers and propaganda media trying to undermine President Trump's peace efforts. She said the actual intelligence briefings to policymakers indicate that Russia is seeking to avoid a larger war with NATO. And more importantly, based on battlefield performance over the last few years, Russia simply does not have the current capability to conquer and occupy all of Ukraine, much less move into Europe. So you can see there's this split even within the US side. One set of sources saying Putin's goals remain maximalist and unchanged, and the top intelligence officials saying, hold on, the capability isn't there, and Russia wants to steer clear of bigger escalation. Now, to understand why this matters so much, we have to go back a bit. The war started in February 2022, with Russia sending forces across the border. Initially, many analysts thought Moscow aimed for a quick takeover of Kyiv in the whole country, but that didn't happen. Ukrainian resistance was fierce, Western support poured in, and Russia shifted focus to the eastern Donbas region and southern areas. Today, Russia controls roughly 20% of Ukraine, including Crimea, which they annexed back in 2014, and large parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. Putin has annexed those four regions, claiming them as Russian territory, but on the ground, fighting continues intensely, with slow Russian advances, but at huge cost in lives and resources. Putin has said over and over that Russia is open to talks, but only on terms that include Ukraine recognizing those annexed areas and staying neutral, no NATO membership, and limits on its military. Now, fast forward to late 2025, and there are these behind-the-scenes negotiations involving US envoys like Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, meeting with Russian and Ukrainian sides separately in places like Miami. The Trump administration is pushing hard for a deal, and there is optimism in some circles that something could be close, but reports like this intelligence leak throw a wrench into it, because if one side believes the other still wants everything, then trust is hard to build, and concessions feel risky. From the Russian perspective, these kinds of reports justify more Western arms to Ukraine and keep the conflict going. They see it as part of a narrative to portray Russia as an eternal threat, which in turn rallies NATO and increases military spending across Europe. Putin himself has dismissed ideas of attacking NATO as nonsense, and even offered legal guarantees that Russia has no intentions toward the alliance. But European leaders, especially in the Baltics and Poland, remain deeply worried. They point to the invasion of Ukraine as proof that Putin could go further if he feels strong enough. On the hidden angles here, there is definitely some domestic US politics at play. Gabbard accusing deep state elements of leaking this to sabotage Trump's peace push suggests not everyone in the intelligence community or government is on the same page. And with Trump back in office focusing on ending wars, this kind of discord could influence how aggressively the US pressures both sides. Public reaction has been mixed. In Russia, state media is amplifying the denial and portraying it as more Western lies to demonize Moscow. Internationally, many see it as escalating tensions unnecessarily. In Ukraine, obviously leaders like Zelensky view any suggestion that Putin has moderated his goals with skepticism. They argue Russia must withdraw fully and face accountability. In the West, opinions split. Some hawks say yes, the intelligence is right, Putin can't be trusted to stop. Others, more dovish, say it's time to recognize realities on the ground and push for compromise. Global impact-wise, this story underscores how fragile the situation remains even as talks happen. If these reports gain traction, it could harden European support for Ukraine, making them less willing to pressure Kyiv into concessions, and it might make Russia dig in more, feeling cornered. Looking ahead, there are a few possibilities. One is that the negotiations gain momentum and some frozen conflict-style deal emerges, with Russia keeping what it holds in exchange for ceasefire and security guarantees for Ukraine, but without full withdrawal. Another is stalemate continues with grinding fighting, especially if no breakthrough soon. And a third, darker one is escalation, if miscalculations happen, though both sides seem to avoid direct NATO involvement. The capability question Gabbard raised is key, because after nearly 4 years, Russia has made gains, but at enormous human and economic cost. Their economy is strained, sanctions bite, and recruitment issues persist. So even if ambitions remain unlimited, the means might force pragmatism in the end. This denial and refutation highlight the deep mistrust at the heart of this conflict. Words from intelligence reports and official statements clash with actions on the ground, and until there is real movement toward compromise, these kinds of stories will keep coming up, raising tensions and questions about what everyone really wants. It's a reminder that in geopolitics, perceptions and narratives can be as powerful as tanks and missiles, and right now the narrative is split wide open. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into these big stories, and let me know in the comments what you think. Is Putin moderating or not, and will there be peace soon? See you next time.